Labeling and marking. Every object should be marked or labelled with its accession number so that it can be easily identified and associated with any and all information an institution may hold about it. This should ideally be done during the accessioning process so that the number remains associated with the object moving forward. Marking means to write the accession number directly onto the object's surface, whereas labelling means to write the accession number on a separate label or tag that can then be attached to the object or even on the object's packaging. Marking objects is often the best option, as tied-on labels or tags can become dissociated, as can packaging. However, sometimes the condition or size of an object may make it difficult or impossible to mark the object directly. In these cases, it is best to label the object instead. The following materials can be used for labeling and marking objects in your collection. In this video, we will demonstrate how to safely use each material and on which objects or material types they should be used. Paraloid acrylic polymers such as Paraloid B72. This can be bought pre-prepared in acetone. It can also be purchased in brushing cap bottles, making it very easy to apply. Wheat starch paste. This can also be bought pre-prepared. Tyvek tabs or labels, acid-free paper labels, cotton twill tape, rollerball pens with acid-free ink, and pencils, HB or 2B. The following materials should not be used when marking or labeling museum objects, as they can cause irreparable damage. Clear nail varnish and nail varnish remover, permanent marker without a barrier layer, Tipp-Ex, as this can stain an object and the number can easily be worn away, sellotape or other pressure-sensitive tape, as these can leave nasty residues, and self-adhesive labels, which can also leave residues. When selecting an appropriate location on your object for marking or labeling, the following points should be taken into consideration. Visibility. Accession numbers should be clearly discernible, ideally enough to avoid unnecessary handling, but unlikely to be overly visible when on display. Aesthetics. It should also not detract from its aesthetic appearance or obscure important details. Avoid decoration, painted areas, numbers, or writing. Longevity. Try to avoid placing accession numbers on surfaces that the object may rest on, such as bases, as the number may get worn away. Condition. Consider the condition of the object. Avoid surfaces that are friable, flaking, or degrading. Multiple components. If your object has multiple or detachable components, ensure that all components are marked or labelled. Composite surfaces. If you are marking composite objects, choose the least porous surface. For example, always mark metal over wood. Marking an object with Paraloid B72. This method will demonstrate how to directly mark an object by applying a barrier coat of Paraloid B72 in acetone, with the accession number written on top. This method is appropriate for objects made of non-porous materials with stable surfaces, such as ceramics, glass, and metal. You will need 15 to 20% Paraloid B72 in acetone. Clean brushes, unless you have a brushing cap bottle of Paraloid B72. Permanent marker, ideally acid-free, and clean nitrile gloves. Choose an appropriate surface on which to place your accession number and prepare your space, your object, and materials. Load your brush or brushing cap with Paraloid B72, but do not overload it. With a steady movement, apply an even layer of Paraloid B72 to the object, just slightly larger than the space needed for the accession number. Allow to dry sufficiently until the surface is no longer tacky to touch. Once the B72 is dry, select an appropriate coloured pen and carefully write your accession number onto the B72 area. Ensure that you do not write on the object. Allow the ink to fully dry before repacking or returning the object to storage or display. This method is reversible in acetone should you make a mistake or need to remove the accession number. You may wish to practice first on an unaccessioned object made of similar materials before trying this technique on collection objects. Applying a paper label to an object using wheat starch paste. This method will demonstrate how to adhere a paper label onto an object's surface. This method is appropriate for wooden objects, particularly those that are lacquered, varnished or painted, and some plastic objects where solvents such as acetone may not be appropriate and could cause disruption to the object's finish or surface. You will need prepared wheat starch paste, acid-free paper labels, clean brushes, permanent marker, ideally acid-free, and clean nitrile gloves. First, perform a small swab test on a discrete area to ensure that the surface will not be disrupted by the water in the prepared wheat starch paste. Next, write the accession number clearly on the paper label. Trim off any excess paper to keep the label as small and unassuming as possible. Apply the wheat starch paste onto the reverse of the paper label. Press firmly onto the object, ensuring that the label lies flat and is well adhered. Allow to fully dry before repacking or returning an object to storage or display. This method is reversible in water. Applying labels to textile or costume collections. You will need perforated Tyvek tabs with washed or unbleached cotton twill tape, or tie-on archival quality paper tags. You will also need a permanent marker, ideally with acid-free ink. Record the accession number on the Tyvek tab or acid-free archival quality paper label. Allow the ink to fully dry to ensure any ink does not transfer onto the object. Choose a suitable location on the object to attach the label. Do not attach labels to decoration or adornments on textiles, and never use holes that have resulted from damage. Consider whether the label will get caught or tug at the object when it's being retrieved. Ensure that you are not putting the textile under any strain when you tie the cotton tag. Marking and labeling paper objects. You will need a pencil, 2B or HB, clean vinyl eraser, and clean nitrile gloves. When marking a paper object, it is important to choose the correct location, use the appropriate pencil, and most importantly, use the appropriate level of pressure. Be careful not to press too hard on the paper. You want to make a mark that is clearly legible, but that does not imprint on the paper and will not leave a mark once it has been erased. Avoid placing accession labels near or on any form of writing or decoration, so that if it needs to be erased, it will not cause any damage to details. Be aware of soiling on the paper as well. If labels need to be erased, it may cause preferential cleaning on an object and leave an uneven finish. Health and safety. Marking should be safe for the object as well as those performing the task. The materials and methods shown in this video have been chosen because they are safe for the object, they are reversible, and they are safe and easy to use. However, care should still be taken when using some of the solvents outlined in these demonstrations. Always work in a well-ventilated area when working with solvents, and ensure that the appropriate material safety data sheets have been read and understood by everyone prior to undertaking this task.